as the university is perfectly positioned to welcome an esports program like none other. Wittenberg's impressive athletics tradition and Tiger Up spirit, mixed with a strong commitment to student success, will allow for a program that competes at the highest level while also caring deeply for each player, both personally and professionally. Esports at Wittenberg will not only be about gaming, but will also be about changing the game. Together, we will build a supportive, dynamic community as we bring our own distinct light to the global phenomenon of esports right here in Springfield, Ohio. It's time to Tiger Up. Let's go.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Sports Now. Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington. Happy Wednesday, everybody. We have made it. We're halfway through the week. And Matt, another action-packed show coming up today here on Sports Now. On Sports Now today, a couple of big guests. We will be joined with assistant coach for Duquesne, who will be making their first March Madness appearance since 1977. Stephen Wright will be joining us at 4:30. We'll have David Marshall, an advanced NBA scout and TKDS Sports Network broadcaster, will be joining us here later on at 5:15 in hour number 2. We have a lot of NFL to catch up on, a lot of college basketball still to talk about, and some unfortunate Reds news at the very end of the show. Once again, Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington. Producer Kevin Fowler here with us as always. Matt, action-packed show. It's been a fun week. It's been an action-packed week. It's been a fun week, but hey, March Madness has officially started with the first four yesterday, and the road to the Final Four has just begun.
And yeah, like I said yesterday, you asked me the question of what's the most exciting part of March Madness, and to me, I said it's the thing starting in the first place. And last night, I mean, we saw Wagner end up taking down Howard and then Colorado State with a huge win over Virginia. So you've got the Rams of Colorado State. I truly believe now they've got Texas. That's the 7 versus 10 we're going to see now. Colorado State, if they keep playing at the level they're playing at, like I said last night, or like I said yesterday, I should say, I truly think Colorado State could be one of those teams that makes a little bit of a run, but we've got to wait because Colorado's got Boise State tonight, and then we have Grambling State playing against Montana State as well in the final 2 games of the first 4 tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So action-packed time coming up here with the March Madness tournament, and then, of course, NFL free agency, the road to the draft upcoming, opening day for Cincinnati, just 8 days away. It'll be happening next Thursday. So it's just that time of the year that, again, when we talk about sports, everybody wants to talk about how great October is. You have college football and NFL football that are ultimately in full swing of things. You have high school football at that time that's starting to wind down and starting to enter the playoffs. You have postseason October baseball, the NBA starting up. You have NHL that's starting up. You also have college basketball that's ending their scrimmages. Their start of the season will start at the beginning of November. So when we talk about sports in general, action-packed months and the months that have the most action, obviously October is going to come to mind, but then you take a look at March, and March, it's very, very similar. You have the NBA that's in full swing of things, heading into their final quarter of the season. You also have March Madness that's starting up, baseball that's starting up. There is a lot going on in March when it comes to sports.
And yeah, when you've got one of, if not the biggest tournaments that you're going to see in, well, definitely the biggest tournament you're going to see in college sports being March Madness. One of the biggest tournaments you're going to see in all of sports being March Madness. One of the most talked about tournaments in all of sports. And you've also got the baseball season starting up very shortly. It's, for us, Jackson, you and I, like we've talked about so many different times on this show, the baseball knowledge between the two of us is immense, but that's because we've played it for, well, you still play it. I don't play it anymore, but both of us have spent a decent chunk of our lives playing baseball, so you and I are both excited for the baseball season to start, especially being Cincinnati Reds fans as well, with the fact that Cincinnati is such a, I wouldn't say hyped up team going into this season, but there's definitely a lot of news and a lot of expectations surrounding the Cincinnati Reds as opposed to the last few seasons where even, I would say last year, there was nowhere near as many expectations going into the regular season a year ago than what we see with Cincinnati going into this year. So for me, like you said, it's about that time that everything's about to start getting really chaotic in the first place. And two, it's going to start getting really fun when we've got March Madness. Obviously, it's officially started. Like we said, the first 2 games of the first 4 have already taken place. The other 2 games happen tonight. And then we'll see the group of 64 start playing. And also with the MLB starting up pretty soon. And not just, obviously, you've got the March Madness National Championship bracket, but for all the teams that we've been covering during the basketball season, the NIT is definitely a tournament that we're keeping our eyes on. So, yeah, there's a lot when it comes to what we've done on this show, who we've covered on this show. For the next few weeks, with March Madness and with, obviously, the MLB season starting up, there is going to be a lot to talk about.
And Matt, now let's shift our focus. Let's talk about the NFL free agency. And Matt, as you like to describe this NFL free agency in the 2024 season, the NFL free agency period needs to get drug tested or something along those lines, because this season, it's been absolutely incredible with what has happened this season in the free agency. It's been absurd what has happened. It has been absolutely crazy. It seemed like as soon as tampering period became legal over a week ago, it was just signings left and right. Not many re-signings. A lot of players and high-name caliber players going to other teams. And Matt, when you look at the other free agency periods over the last couple of years within the NFL free agency period, it certainly was a lot, but it certainly has grown to the craziness that we saw this season. And Matt, I'm going to go ahead and say a lot of the markets out there in the National Football League, they're broken. I mean, you look at the salary cap. The salary cap was increased, but look at the quarterback market. You have Kirk Cousins, a 35-year-old quarterback, coming off an Achilles injury. Now, don't get me wrong. I think he's an incredible quarterback. I do expect a great comeback from him, but signing 4 years, $180 million. That's more. That contract in today's day and age of football is on the lower side when it comes to NFL quarterbacks. We talk about the contract extension that Joe Burrow got last season and some of the contract extensions that have happened over the last couple of years. Aaron Rodgers comes to mind, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, and there's so many great quarterbacks that are also due for contract extensions in the future. You look at the wide receiving market, and wide receivers, they certainly are getting a lot. Matt, Michael Pittman, 3 years, $71.5 million. Mike Evans, 2 years, $52 million. So when you look at quarterback market and the receiving market, I mean, that's when you take a look at the entire pie that you have when it comes to an NFL cap space, the majority of it is already now being used on your quarterback and your wide receiver. So what would we have thought that would have gone to the wayside, or what has gone to the wayside in the typical National Football League offense over the last couple of years? That's been the running back position. Well, nope, not this season. You have Saquon Barkley, who ended up going from the New York Giants to the Philadelphia Eagles, 3 years, $37.75 million. And then you also take a look at Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard now a member of the Tennessee Titans. Derrick Henry going to the Baltimore Ravens. Joe Mixon was traded and then re-signed to a larger contract extension with the Houston Texans. So when you look at the numbers and the breakdown, what we were to think over the last couple of years of the running back and that cap space going to the wayside, and okay, well, we can just get a younger running back out of college, a little bit more fresh, not as much damage for cheaper money, and then we can invest more money into our quarterback, to our wide receiver, into the offensive line, into the defense. That ideology of a typical National Football League team has completely changed this season, because this offseason, unlike the previous couple of offseasons, we've seen running backs get massive contract extension, and it makes me believe, where else is all the money going? I mean, if you're an offense and you're paying for a top-end quarterback, a top-end receiver, and a top-end running back, how's that defense look? When you look at how inflated the market is for every single position in the National Football League, it is absolutely crazy to think that running backs, receivers, and quarterbacks these days cost this much.
And yeah, one thing that I've thought about, I think it would be a very funny concept to happen, especially with how this offseason has gone. It's completely off topic of the running back market, wide receiver market, quarterback market, but how funny would it be if there was absolutely zero reporting on any free agency movement and any trading going on during the offseason? So the first time you see the new rosters, is game number 1 of the regular season. So you essentially go from Kirk Cousins on the Vikings, and then you flip it to the next season, and you see him in a Falcons uniform. And then you see Derrick Henry, you see him in a Ravens uniform. I personally think that would be insanely funny to see, but going back to talking about, obviously, the different markets, to me, you talk about the running back market, the fact that it seems like the market has been a little bit inflated this season. To me, I don't really see it being super inflated, because when you take a look at, obviously, the wide receiver position is obviously a little bit more valued right now in the NFL as opposed to the running back position. But you talk about Saquon Barkley, the fact that he got a pretty big contract with Philadelphia. But to me, that's what was it, $37 million for 3 years? To me, for a player that has the caliber of Saquon Barkley, to me, that's kind of undervaluing him a little bit. And then you've got the Browns, on the other hand, picking up and trading for Jerry Jeudy, and obviously it was a trade, but they're going to end up paying him $58 million through 3 years for a receiver that has so much potential, but the potential hasn't been seen with Cleveland yet, and they're forking over that much money to keep him long-term on the team. So to me, talking about the running back market being inflated, obviously it's been inflated a little bit during this offseason. I don't think it's been too crazy like some people have been saying, because at the end of the day, if the running back market was crazy inflated, we would have been seeing Saquon Barkley get $20 million a year for going to Philadelphia, a team that if they get to the 1 yard line where they're going to end up trying to run where most teams would end up trying to run the football, Jalen Hurts is going to get tush pushed into the end zone. So to me, yes, the running back market has been inflated a little bit, but has it been absolutely blown out of proportion and absolutely blown up from last year? I don't really think that it's gone that big, but like I said, obviously running backs are their value, and their value from a team and from a manager standpoint is a lot less than, say, a talented wide receiver or a talented quarterback or even talented defensive players in the cornerback position, D-line, edge, linebacker. So to me, yes, the running back market has been inflated a little bit, but it hasn't been absolutely blown out of proportion like we've seen the quarterback market get blown out of proportion, like we've seen the wide receiver market get blown out of proportion. So to me, has the running back market been inflated? Yes. Is it as bad as every other market? Absolutely not.
Yeah, and I don't think it's as bad as every other market, but the hype around the running back position over the last couple of years has certainly been, well, once a player gets 27 years old, we're going to let them go, and we're going to go attack in the draft, because then you could get somebody younger with far less more damage and maybe a little bit less mileage on them as well. I know I'm talking car terms, but then you bring them on, they're on a rookie contract, and you can keep them for cheap. And Matt, I don't know if you've, when you look back at the numbers of when you look back at the past Super Bowl champions and some of the running backs on those Super Bowl champion teams and the amount of money that they were making, it's significantly less, and it's one of the more underpaid positions on the entire roster. And to me, to see this market completely transform into maybe more favoring the running backs like we've seen over the last decade or so, to me, I just think it's crazy. When we entered this offseason, I never thought that I would be talking about the running backs. I mean, obviously, Saquon Barkley is one of the best, if not the best, running backs in the NFL. You could say the same thing with Josh Jacobs, who's now going from Las Vegas to Green Bay. But when you look overall at the overall position, there's a lot of guys, a lot of older guys that are being signed to long-term deals and to some big high-paying contracts, which good for them. Good for them. I'm not trying to dock them by any means. I'm just trying to say, when you look back at the ideology of the running back position over the last couple of years, it certainly has grown. It certainly has not prepared us what to expect for this offseason. Matt, we have a few more minutes before we have to take a break. I'm going to throw it to you here in just a second. But another thing that we've seen in this offseason, and I'll go ahead and say this, and I think that it's been gone across the National Football League since I mean, a long, long, long time ago, but loyalty. How many times have we seen a free agent this offseason signed to a division rival? We saw Geno Stone, former safety for the Baltimore Ravens, sign with the Cincinnati Bengals. We saw Saquon Barkley jump from the New York Giants to the Philadelphia Eagles. We saw Patrick Queen from the Baltimore Ravens going now to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We also have seen DeAndre Swift, former Lions running back. Yes, he was with the Eagles last season, now with the Chicago Bears. So loyalty, it seems like I've seen a lot of people commenting on the loyalty, and there's a lot of the fans that are a little bit upset about this, but I mean, I just want to kind of go out and set the record straight. When you're being offered the amount of money that these athletes are being offered, it doesn't matter whether or not it's a division rival or not. They're going to go and they're going to get their payday. And it's been like that in the National Football League for, I'd say even back since the 70s, since the 80s. It's been like that. So we preach the loyalty aspect side of things. And yes, there is no loyalty, it seems like, in the NFL nowadays. But at the end of the day, it hasn't changed. There hasn't been loyalty in the NFL for quite some time and for a long time. And it just now seems like it's being publicized a little bit more by the media, and a lot more people are talking about it. Now, you could even go back a couple years ago when Mike Hilton made the jump from Pittsburgh to come to the Cincinnati Bengals. That was a division crossover, and Mike Hilton, now playing with the Cincinnati Bengals, and with his first game back at Heinz Field, was waving goodbye to all the Pittsburgh Steelers fans. And when you look at the term loyalty comes into play. Again, when you go back even in the 1900s, when you go back into the 1990s, the 1980s, the 1970s, when a player is being offered the amount of money that these players want, it throws all loyalty out the window. And it's been like that across the National Football League for so long. I don't necessarily know why it's now getting publicized and talked about a lot more than what it already has.
And yeah, to me, like, let's just be real here. The argument of a player being loyal to a team, that is history right now in the NFL. The NFL, for player and from the player standpoint, it's a business now. It's not I'm going to stick with the team I was drafted by because I want to stick with these fans. I want to stay loyal to this team, this, that. There's going to be the players that end up doing that, but those are the kinds of players that, take, for instance, Patrick Mahomes. Got drafted by Kansas City, absolutely loves playing with Andy Reid, loves playing with Travis Kelce, and they're paying him a ton of money to stay in Kansas City. Take a look at Joe Burrow. He loves the atmosphere in Cincinnati, but he's the caliber of player that gets the kind of money from Cincinnati that Cincinnati is obviously, with that contract, they obviously want him to stay in Cincinnati, and they're willing to pay a lot of money to keep them in Cincinnati. If you're a player that gets some starting time and then say you get injured, or say you aren't a superstar top 20 player in the NFL, and you're one of the players that is going to have immediate impact on the team no matter what game you step out on that football field. Those are the only players that you're going to, if you see a quote-unquote loyalty argument come out of, those are the only players you're going to see it happen from. But that's because the teams that drafted them are going to pay them the big bucks to stay on that team. So people talking about and people complaining about, man, players aren't loyal anymore. They haven't been loyal in the NFL for a long time. Ever since it switched from playing on teams and playing on the team that you drafted to it being a business, which it's been a business for players for a long time. It's only just now, like you mentioned, the lights kind of being shown on a little bit more. But to me, everybody's saying that, where's the loyalty gone? Where's the loyalty gone? Has it even really been around in recent memory? At least in the time that I've been alive, I don't really think there's been a super intense viewpoint of loyalty to teams in the NFL. And to me, I don't see problems with that. When it's the NFL, your career can end in one game. Why not try to make the most money you can? In the time that you have in the NFL, why not try to make the most money you possibly can when you are healthy enough to make that kind of money?
And going kind of based on that topic as well, when you mentioned that the loyalty is gone and there hasn't been much loyalty across the NFL. And Matt, that's simply, we're singling in and we're dialing in right now, talking the National Football League, but that is pretty much every other sport that is out there. There's no loyalty in Major League Baseball anymore. If so, we would have seen Shohei Ohtani stay with the Los Angeles Angels. We wouldn't see these big market teams coming in and capturing a lot of these big name players like we have over the last couple of years. So loyalty in Major League Baseball, gone. Loyalty in the NBA basketball, it's been gone ever since the super team idea came up. And I'd even say long before then it's been gone as well. I'd say it's been gone ever since the early to mid 2000s. The NHL, the same situation. And now we're also starting to see it trickle down into the college world as well, where there just simply is no loyalty. And when you look at loyalty, the most loyal you will have in any sporting event, in any form of sporting event, is right now at the high school level. And even then, the amount of transfers that are happening at the high school level will kind of deter you from believing that. When you look at the sports world in general, there is no loyalty from any of the players. And it's been like that. It's been like that for the NFL. It's been like that for the MLB. It's been like that for the NBA. It's starting to get like that for college. It's been like that at the high school level with how many transfers we're seeing. And again, loyalty when it comes to sports is done. And Matt, I will go ahead and say this. I know we have, I just want to touch base on this real quick before we take a break, our first break of this 2-hour show. For a guy from Southwest Ohio, a guy who resides in Dayton, Ohio, and a guy who lives in Southwest Ohio. Matt, this show, we cover Southwest Ohio sports. Therefore, as we've talked about on this show, we can be a little bit biased because we're from Southwest Ohio and because we're talking about the teams in Southwest Ohio. I will go out and say for the record, I am a Bengals fan. Matt, you are a Browns fan. I am able, for my job, to put my bias aside, and I'm going to do that right here. You know who won the NFL free agency? Pittsburgh Steelers. They beef up the defense with Patrick Queen, and then they take a look. Not only did they get one franchise quarterback for league minimum because the Broncos are paying them 30-some-odd mil a year, but they also trade and possibly get another franchise guy and a guy who can sit under Russell Wilson. So if it doesn't work out with Russell Wilson, you have Justin Fields now, former Ohio State Buckeye, who could step in and take over for the Pittsburgh Steelers. When you look at what the Pittsburgh Steelers have done this offseason, they've beefed up the defense. They've gotten a lot better on the offense. This was a 10-win team a year ago. Don't sleep on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And again, this is coming from a Bengals fan. This is coming from a guy who resides in Southwest Ohio, and we talk about Bengals and Browns on this show. And again, I could say that on this show because we're from Southwest Ohio. We can have a little bit of bias on this show because this is the area of this show, the teams that we talk about. And I will put my bias aside, and I will say the Pittsburgh Steelers have won the 2024 free agency so far. The reason why I say so far, it's not even close to being done. Time for a break. We'll be back on Sports Now.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Whenever you're feeling good and hungry, it's Skyline time. Gather together with friends and family. It's Skyline time.
Being Friday, everyone's looking forward to the weekend. Skyline's a good way to kind of kick that off.
You smell the chili, you hear the crowd, and they're having a good time. Skyline Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays definitely happen as well.
We love it every time we go.
We love serving families our real family recipes, made fresh with quality ingredients. And we love helping families find ways to stretch a buck. You see, we've always been about value. With coupons and money-saving offers, Like the free pizzas you get with our buddy cards, making it easier for families to share a meal and a laugh. With flavors so good, the only thing left are the crumbs. And the memories. La Rosa's, the real family pizzeria.
I'm thrilled to be at Wittenberg at this time and place, as the university is perfectly positioned to welcome an esports program like none other. Wittenberg's impressive athletics tradition and Tiger Up spirit, mixed with a strong commitment to student success, will allow for a program that competes at the highest level while also caring deeply for each player, both personally and professionally. Esports at Wittenberg will not only be about gaming, but will also be about changing the game. Together, we will build a supportive, dynamic community as we bring our own distinct light to the global phenomenon of esports right here in Springfield, Ohio. It's time to Tiger Up. Let's go.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington as we welcome you back here to the TKDS Sports Network and Sports Now. We have just a couple of minutes before Stephen Wright, assistant coach for Duquesne men's basketball, will be joining us here momentarily. We're going to talk to him about his playing career, a native of Dayton, Ohio. He coached at Princeton High School, won GMC Coach of the Year back in 2018, went and played at Bowling Green, then Northern Kentucky, and worked his way up to becoming the assistant coach at Duquesne. And guess what? They're going dancing. So we're going to talk about that here in just a couple of minutes with assistant coach Stephen Wright joining the show here at 4:30. We have just a couple of minutes here, and Matt, during these couple of minutes, let's talk about what the Bengals and what the Cleveland Browns need still to fill before they head into the draft. Cincinnati, they signed Trent Brown yesterday. I still think, though, that there is a glaring hole at two positions for the Cincinnati Bengals. One, a wide receiver, three, and a slot receiver. I like the receivers that the Bengals have. I like Trent Irwin. I like Charlie Jones. I like Andre Yosevas, but I don't necessarily trust them quite fully to fully step into that starting wide receiver 3 role and fill the shoes of Tyler Boyd, which he's held for 7 straight years now in Cincinnati as the slot receiver. I think that could be a level of concern for Cincinnati. I'd like to see them maybe adjust on that later in free agency or in the draft. I think the most glaring issue that Cincinnati has is the loss of DJ Reader. The Bengals, they made a great signing going out and getting Sheldon Rankins, but you have got to be able to find a way to stop the run, especially now with Derrick Henry playing in the AFC North with the Baltimore Ravens, a team that went to the AFC Championship just a single season ago. I think that the Bengals, they need a nose tackle. I'm not trusting the Bengals to go out and get one in the draft, because at the draft, then you're trusting that player to become an immediate impact right then and there the moment he steps on the field. When you take a look at the draft, it's hard to do that. Bengals, they need to find a way to get a nose tackle. Is there one left in free agency? I don't necessarily know. I know Tier Tart visited, but he left without a deal. Maybe they're still trying to pursue him, but if not, and if things didn't work out, the Bengals need to be picking up the phones and making some calls for some trades.
And yeah, I'm going to flip it over to the Browns side. To me, with everything the Browns have done so far during free agency, I think in the draft and in free agency, it just needs to be depth. For me, it feels like it needs to be a little bit more towards the offensive line side, because as a Browns fan, with the amount of injuries the team had last year and the amount of injuries that the team as a whole has had over the past couple years to that offensive line, it just feels like Cleveland needs more offensive linemen than any other team in the NFL right now. But you take a look at pretty much every other position that maybe there was question marks on what the Browns needed to do and if the Browns needed to pick up pieces to it. Running back is a position that had a few question marks around it. They just got Donta Foreman from Chicago, and they also have Naheem Hines. Wide receiver, another position that there might be question marks about. James Prochet, Jerry Jeudy, now on the roster. You take a look further down, defensive line was definitely a spot that there was a lot of questions for Cleveland, and there was a lot of Cleveland needs to try to beef this up. 3 defensive linemen, Shelby Harris, Maurice Hurst, Quentin Jefferson, all being signed to the Browns. Zadarius Smith re-signing with the Browns. And then linebackers, the Browns got Devin Bush and Jordan Hicks. So to me, the big question marks, all the positions that the Browns had a lot of questions on, they have picked up pieces that can refill those holes. But like I said, to me, it's depth, and I'm looking more towards the offensive line side because I listed all those positions. Michael Dunn at O-guard is the only offensive line position the Browns have picked up so far during free agency. And with, like I said, the amount of injuries we see to the Browns offensive line, that needs to be something that the Browns want to try to look at throughout the remainder of free agency and in the upcoming draft as well.
It is time for a break. When we return, assistant coach from the Duquesne Dukes, a team that's going dancing in March Madness, will be joining us. Stephen Wright will join us on the other side of this break. We'll be back here on Sports Now.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Whenever you're feeling good and hungry, it's Skyline time. Gather together with friends and family. It's Skyline time.
Being Friday, everyone's looking forward to the weekend. Skyline's a good way to kind of kick that off.
You smell the chili, you hear the crowd, and they're having a good time. Skyline Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays definitely happen as well.
We love it every time we go.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
I'm thrilled to be at Wittenberg at this time and place, as the university is perfectly positioned to welcome an esports program like none other. Wittenberg's impressive athletics tradition and Tiger Up spirit, mixed with a strong commitment to student success, will allow for a program that competes at the highest level while also caring deeply for each player, both personally and professionally. Esports at Wittenberg will not only be about gaming, but will also be about changing the game. Together, we will build a supportive, dynamic community as we bring our own distinct light to the global phenomenon of esports right here in Springfield, Ohio. It's time to Tiger Up. Let's go.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
We welcome you back here to the TKDS Sports Network and Sports Now. Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington, and we are joined with Stephen Wright, an assistant coach for the Duquesne Dukes University, their men's basketball team, a team that will be playing BYU tomorrow in round one of the NCAA March Madness tournament. Coach Wright, how can you hear us?
I'm doing good. I appreciate you having me.
Once again, Stephen Wright joining us here on the call. Stephen, thanks again for taking time out of your busy day. We understand that you're super busy right now preparing for that round one matchup tomorrow against BYU, roughly around 12:40 p.m. Eastern time. Coach, again, thanks for joining us on the show. How about we start off with you telling us just a little bit about yourself and the journey that you took on becoming a coach for the Duquesne Dukes coaching staff?
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm originally born and raised in Dayton, Ohio. Played at Dayton Colonel White High School. fell in love with the game at an early age. And, that passion kind of led me to, earn a scholarship. And I earned a scholarship from, various schools throughout the country, and decided to go to Bowling Green State University. I was recruited by a coach named Dan Dockage that took an opportunity. Gave me an opportunity. And, my first year I was there, I redshirted. I was a Prop 48. I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't know what a Prop 48 is, but was academically ineligible at the time. I didn't pass my ACT. So, got to Bowling Green and matured a lot. A lot of kids nowadays would have just, just weathered through. But, I matured a lot during that year. And, I played 3 years there and graduated there. And once I graduated, I went to Northern Kentucky. I transferred to Northern Kentucky during their Division II era. And really had a really good, successful year there as a team and individually. I was named first team All-American Division II, and I was Player of the Year in that GOVC conference. And then after Northern, man, I had the opportunity to go overseas and play. So I went overseas and played for 5 years. And, while I was overseas, I just kind of fell in love with, all the different coaches that I had. And, I knew, once I got done playing, that I wanted to coach. I wanted to be able to get in and be able to give back to all the things that I learned as a player. And then, once I retired from playing, I took a assistant job at the Division I NAIA school called the University of Cumberland in Kentucky. And I was there for a year. I really liked it. I really learned from Coach Don Butcher, who gave me my first opportunity. And then I ended up leaving there and coaching at Columbus State Community College in Columbus, Ohio, for 3 seasons. And then I was there for 3 seasons. During that time, I was coaching at the junior college level. I was doing the grassroots as well. So I was multitasking. I was coaching King James Shooting Stars on the Nike EYBL, for 4 years. And then I took a high school job. I took a high school job as a head coach at Cincinnati Princeton. And I was there for 2 years as the head coach and, got the opportunity to coach a McDonald's All-American by the name of Darius Baisley, who's currently with the Utah Jazz now. And I coached there a year after he graduated, and I took a job as a video coordinator under Dennis Gates at Cleveland State for a year. I was there for a year, and then I took a job at Bowling Green State University, my alma mater. Coach Michael Huger gave me an opportunity, and I was there for 3 years. And then I got the job here at Duquesne in July. So I've been here since July, man. It's been a journey, but I'm enjoying every moment of it.
And Duquesne's certainly having a terrific season right now. They're heading into the NCAA March Madness tournament. Coach Wright, you talked about you always knew that you wanted to become a head coach as soon as you finished your playing career. But when was that moment that you truly realized that you did want to become a coach? And what future aspirations do you have with your coaching career?
Yeah, I think my 3rd year overseas, I used to help. I played in Germany for a year. And my 3rd year over there, I started doing things around the community, just giving back as a professional. And I just kind of fell in love. And I'm like, I really want to take this thing to the next level. And, once I'm done playing, it's something I wanted to do is get into coaching. And I did it. Once I stopped playing, I took the job at Cumberland's, and, I've been going at it ever since. But, obviously, as a coach, you're competitive and things like that. I do have aspirations of being a head coach one day, and I'm just taking it one day at a time, man, and just trying to, be there for my head coach and making sure that, he's having success, making sure that our players getting everything that they need, from me on the court and off the court, just to make sure, that they're successful, while they're in our program and when they leave.
And Coach, you've been able to work with some terrific coaches during your career, your playing career and your coaching career. Some of those including Coach Huger at Bowling Green, as you mentioned, and then Coach Dambrot with Duquesne and the Dukes. What have you learned from each and every coach that you've been able to play for, that you've been able to work with, and what have they meant to you throughout this journey?
Oh, man. I mean, they meant everything. Dennis Gates was the first, who's now at Missouri. He was the first head coach that gave me an opportunity, at the Division I level. I took a job. I left Princeton. I took a job with him as the video coordinator. And, he saw something in me that, a lot of people didn't see, and I got on his staff and, I learned every day from him. And, he always told me, he said, man, you're going to be here for 1 year. And, somebody's going to come and get you, man, because you should have been, you should have been at this level a long time ago. And he was right. I went in every day and, I really worked hard to make sure that, our players, got everything that they need from me. And, I was there for our staff. And, then I got the opportunity to go to Bowling Green. So, from him, man, it's just, learning how to, be patient, being patient with, our guys and, just taking everything in and learning every day, the ins and out of, being a coach at this level, and Coach Dambrot as well, gave me an opportunity, who recruited me, 20 years ago when he was at Akron. I end up going to Bowling Green and playing. But, I've just been learning from them every day, man, of just, preparation of, how we approach games and, recruiting and, everything, man. It's been a really good journey. And, I'm still taking, things in every day and just trying to continue to learn.
Coach Dambrot announced a few days ago that this dance will be his final dance as he is retiring at the end of the season. Can you describe to us how that locker room felt and how the coaching staff felt after that announcement was made?
Yeah, it was a little bit emotional, honestly. Coach Dambrot is an unbelievable person, man. He comes every day, he put his hard hat on. He's fair, he's caring, he's professional, and he loved the guys that he coached, and he loves the game. So it was a little bit emotional for our players and our staff because he's been around for a long time. He's won 500 plus games. He's been to multiple NCAA tournaments, won multiple championships while he was at Akron and at Ashland. But it's the guys know. That, going forward that, they'll be in good hands, going forward.
Once again, we're talking to assistant coach Stephen Wright for the Duquesne Dukes and that men's basketball program. They are getting prepared for their first round matchup tomorrow in the NCAA March Madness tournament, facing off against BYU. Coach, we invite you to stay with us. We do have to take a small little break. We'll be back here in about 2.5 minutes or so. And on the other side of this break, we're going to talk about the Duquesne Dukes and their season and what they were able to do, especially during that A-10 tournament run, and what it means to the program and the university for them being back in the dance. That and more coming up next here on Sports Now.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Whenever you're feeling good and hungry, it's Skyline time. Gather together with friends and family. It's Skyline time.
Being Friday, everyone's looking forward to the weekend. Skyline's a good way to kind of kick that off.
You smell the chili, you hear the crowd, and they're having a good time. Skyline Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays definitely happen as well.
We love it every time we go.
We love serving families our real family recipes, made fresh with quality ingredients. And we love helping families find ways to stretch a buck. You see, we've always been about value, with coupons and money-saving offers like the free pizzas you get with our buddy cards, making it easier for families to share a meal and a laugh. With flavors so good, the only thing left are the crumbs. And the memories. La Rosa's, the real family pizzeria.
I'm thrilled to be at Wittenberg at this time and place, as the university is perfectly positioned to welcome an esports program like none other. Wittenberg's impressive athletics tradition and Tiger Up spirit, mixed with a strong commitment to student success, will allow for a program that competes at the highest level while also caring deeply for each player, both personally and professionally. Esports at Wittenberg will not only be about gaming, but will also be about changing the game. Together, we will build a supportive, dynamic community as we bring our own distinct light to the global phenomenon of esports right here in Springfield, Ohio. It's time to Tiger Up. Let's go.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
We love serving families our real family recipes, made fresh with quality ingredients. And we love helping families find ways to stretch a buck. You see, we've always been about value, with coupons and money-saving offers like the free pizzas you get with our buddy cards, making it easier for families to share a meal and a laugh. With flavors so good, the only thing left are the crumbs. And the memories. La Rosa's, the real family pizzeria.
We welcome you back here to the TKDS Sports Network. Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington, our producer Kevin Fowler, and we also are joined with assistant coach for Duquesne men's basketball. That is Stephen Wright. Stephen, once again, thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us. We know that you're preparing for your round one matchup tomorrow against BYU. Best of luck to you, Coach, and best of luck to all the other teams in the tournament as well. Coach, heading in, let's talk about the Duquesne Dukes a little bit and how your season went. Heading into the A-10 tournament, you guys were listed on quote-unquote underdogs, but you were playing your best basketball at that time. So talk to us about that feeling that you and the team had when winning that A-10 tournament and punching your ticket to the big dance for the first time in school history since 1977.
Yeah, it was an awesome feeling, man. I think, our guys I got here in July, and those guys came in every day and worked their tail off. And just to see, us starting 0-5 in the conference after, once conference started, everybody doubted us. But, we didn't waver. We came in and guys worked hard every day. They stuck together and, just to see us, go through a gauntlet of, playing St. Louis and then beating Dayton, and then, beating St. Bonnie's and then beating VCU in the championship, just to see the smile and the tears that, our guys had on their face. It was memorable, and, we still got more work to do. Guys are still hungry, and, we just excited for the next opportunity.
Coach, as we just mentioned before, this is your first NCAA March Madness tournament since 1977. What does that mean to Duquesne University and to the fan base to be back?
Yeah, it means a lot. It's just not about, the men's basketball program. It's about our school. And it's about our athletic department, our community, the city of Pittsburgh. It's good to see us, get back. 1977 is a long time. And, our fans are excited. Our student body are excited. And like I said, man, we're excited as a program too, man. Our guys are super excited because you got to understand this, man. Coaches coach for 20, 30 years. Players, transfer here and there and play in different programs. Everybody don't get a chance to play in the NCAA tournament. There's only 68 teams. So, it's really an honor to be here. And, like I said, man, coaches I know of coaches that have been in coaching for 20, 30 plus years, and they haven't made the NCAA tournament. So it's a blessing, man. But, our guys really put the work in, and, our staff, really put the work in to make sure that, these guys are prepared, every opponent that we played to put those guys in position to win.
And Coach, in the first segment that we had you, we kind of got a little bit about your background and the journey that you took to becoming the coach at Duquesne University. You talked about how you are a Dayton native. You grew up in the Dayton area. You went to Colonel Wright High School, now a assistant coach and on that coaching staff for the Duquesne Dukes. And Duquesne, they took down the University of Dayton and the Flyers in the A-10 tournament. How did that feel to you? Did it feel, was it a little bit emotional for you taking down your hometown team?
Oh yeah, it was definitely emotional, man. We played at Dayton a couple weeks ago, and I had 40 plus family members there. I know we came up short, but Coach Grant does an unbelievable job with their program. He's a guy that, anytime I need advice, is the guy that, I reach out to. I know Ricardo Greer, James Kane is one of my good friends on that staff. But, it was awesome feeling for myself, for our guys, because, they always mark Dayton on the calendar, when we on the schedule when we play them. But it was a great feeling, man. And, I wish, Coach Grant and the University of Dayton all the best. I'm pretty sure they're going to do well. And, we both represent the Atlantic 10 Conference. So, it's been word around that, it was a one big league, but, our conference is so tough, night in and night out. If you don't come to play, you can lose, at any given night. So, I wish Dayton all the best, and hopefully, they're rooting for us, because I'm rooting for them, because I know those guys over there on that staff. So I'm definitely rooting for them.
And you talked about Dayton and Duquesne both going to the big dance, the NCAA March Madness tournament, and both of them are representing the Atlantic 10. And you talk about how you're rooting for Dayton, and you hope that Dayton's rooting for Duquesne as well. And is that a little bit you guys in the A10 and really any conference when it comes to college basketball, you guys will beat up on each other all year long. You guys are fighting in the standings. You guys are rivals. But it seems like no matter what, if it's a conference at the high school level or a conference at the collegiate level, you guys all come together and unite as one and as one fan base, because you guys, yes, the fan bases are rooting particularly for your team to do well, but you want to also see the conference succeed as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I said, man, if you look at our standings, you have Richmond, Loyola, and Dayton, and VCU at the top, 1 through 3, 4. But anything from, 5 to 10 was 1 or 2 games apart. It's just a battle, it's unbelievable coaching. Coach Danbrot is unbelievable. Fran Dunphy at LaSalle, Coach Grant, it's, all these coaches in this conference, man, is, making sure that those guys are prepared to, their teams are prepared to play night in and night out. And, if you don't bring it, man, you can lose any given night. It don't matter, who's at the bottom of the standing. If you don't come and play, you can lose. So, it's an unbelievable conference, the A10. I think it should be a multi-bid league. But, obviously we got 2 in, and, like I said, we're rooting for Dayton. Hopefully Dayton is, rooting for us, and all the rest of the Atlantic 10 teams, are rooting for us and Dayton to represent, because you got to look, man, the net rankings this year, I think we had 8 teams in the top 100. We got 6 teams playing in the postseason. You got us and Dayton representing us in the NCAA. You had Richmond, VCU, St. Joe's, and Loyola playing in the NIT. So we had 6 teams out of our conference that's playing in the postseason. So that shows you how tough the Atlantic 10 is.
Coach, earlier we talked about playing your best basketball. Each and every team wants to be playing their best basketball right when this time of season hits, and you guys are certainly doing that. On a current 8-game winning streak, winning the A-10, what sparked this run for Duquesne basketball at the end of the season?
Yeah, I think just togetherness. Our guys in our locker room, and they love each other. And you can't have success. We always talk about we before me. And those guys love each other. And I think, we got hot at the right time, and that's what it's about, getting hot at the right time. But we knew all year, even when we started off the conference on 5, we knew that we were one of the top teams in this conference. And we just battled and rallied every day. We pushed these guys every day, and, they were receptive to it. And, we've been rolling ever since.
Coach, you talk about starting the year in conference 0-5. What was it like when you guys were 0-5? Because we see a lot of teams, when they start off 0-5, the morale in the locker room is down. They hit a brick wall, and it's very tough to win games, especially when they're in conference against familiar faces and against familiar foes. So when you don't get off on the right foot in conference, it could certainly nosedive your season. Duquesne, on the other hand, it seemed like they rallied around that 0-5 start and eventually ended up grinding all the way back into becoming A-10 champions. What was the mindset when you were 0-5, and what was that turning point early on in the season for the Dukes?
Yeah, I think the mindset was always positive, man. We always talked about not blinking. We never blinked. And, we lost a couple close games. We got our tail kicked at UMass, but, it was a couple possession games at Loyola, lost at the buzzer to St. Joe's. It was a 4-point game at home against Dayton. Deron Holmes hit 2 threes, and, they go up 10 in 2 possessions. You know what I mean? So, we always knew, we were right there. So we never wavered, man. Guys continued to come in and get extra work in, watch extra film. Practice was super competitive, and we knew all along that we would get out. We'd get out our stench, and we just kept battling and rallying, and we came out on top, and won 8 straight games, and now we're playing in the NCAA tournament. But we just want we want our program and to continue to have success. We don't want it to be a 1-year deal. And then we don't make it back in the next, 8 to 10 years. We want to be able to go out and recruit the right kids to make sure that we're doing this, consistently.
And Coach, final question for you. Big game coming up tomorrow against BYU, who came from a very tough Big 12 conference. What's your thought on this BYU team, and what will you guys have to do to continue to dance in this tournament?
Yeah, BYU's tough. They play in the Big 12. They, finish at the top half of their, conference. They're tough. They shoot the 3 really well. They're physical. They're older, as well. We got to make sure, they play fast. They one of the top teams in tempo in the country. And, we got to make sure that, we get back in transition, defend the 3, and, win the rebound war. And, we tell our guys all the time, man, just go out, know the game plan, execute it. And at the end of the day, man, just go out and have fun. There's an opportunity of a lifetime right now. We don't try to put, too much stress on them. We want them to go out and play free, and it's gonna be a really physical game. They're one of the top defensive teams in the country. We're one of the top defensive teams in the country, and it's gonna be fun tomorrow.
Well, once again, Stephen Wright, assistant coach for Duquesne and the Dukes men's basketball team. They are dancing tomorrow against BYU in round 1 and in the round of 64. Coach Wright, thank you so much for taking time out of your very hectic and very busy schedule to join us on this show today. We'd love to have you back on the show in the future. And once again, thank you for your time.
Man, I appreciate you guys, man. Anytime you guys need me, I'm always going to be here. So hopefully you guys get the opportunity to watch us tomorrow, and go Dukes.
Absolutely. Hey, I have you guys winning round 1 of my brackets, so I got something riding on it. But once again, assistant coach Stephen Wright for the Duquesne Dukes. Stephen, once again, thank you.
Thank you.
And it is time to take a break. Coming up in hour number 2 of this show, we're talk about the first 4 that's happening right here in Dayton. That and more coming up next here on Sports Now.
We love serving families our real family recipes, made fresh with quality ingredients. And we love helping families find ways to stretch a buck. You see, we've always been about value, with coupons and money-saving offers, like the free pizzas you get with our buddy cards, making it easier for families to share a meal and a laugh. With flavors so good, the only thing left are the crumbs. And the memories. La Rosa's, the real family pizzeria.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Whenever you're feeling good and hungry, it's Skyline time. Gather together with friends and family. It's Skyline time.
Being Friday, everyone's looking forward to the weekend. Skyline's a good way to kind of kick that off.
You smell the chili, you hear the crowd, and they're having a good time. Skyline Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays definitely happen as well.
We love it every time we go.
I'm thrilled to be at Wittenberg at this time and place, as the university is perfectly positioned to welcome an esports program like none other. Wittenberg's impressive athletics tradition and Tiger Up spirit, mixed with a strong commitment to student success, will allow for a program that competes at the highest level while also caring deeply for each player, both personally and professionally. Esports at Wittenberg will not only be about gaming, but will also be about changing the game. Together, we will build a supportive, dynamic community as we bring our own distinct light to the global phenomenon of esports right here in Springfield, Ohio. It's time to Tiger Up. Let's go.
We love serving families our real family recipes, made fresh with quality ingredients. And we love helping families find ways to stretch a buck. You see, we've always been about value, with coupons and money-saving offers, like the free pizzas you get with our buddy cards, making it easier for families to share a meal and a laugh. With flavors so good, the only thing left are the crumbs. And the memories. La Rosa's, the real family pizzeria.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
We welcome you back here, hour number 2 of this 2-hour show. Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington. We just got off the phone with Stephen Wright, assistant coach for Duquesne men's basketball. David Marshall will be joining us here, at advanced NBA scout and a basketball guru. And we have a lot of thanks and a lot of praise for David Marshall coming on the show as well, because the interview we had yesterday with Mr. Brian Thornton, the commissioner of the Western Athletic Conference, and then the interview we had today just moments ago with Stephen Wright, David Marshall was able to help us out and get us in contact with them. So huge shout out to David Marshall. I'm excited for you to come on here in about 10 minutes or so. I know he's probably watching the show, or that's what he says, and then he doesn't. But anyway.
And he might not be watching the show. No.
But anyway, we are going to talk to him here in about 10 minutes or so. So he's super excited to have him on to get his thoughts on NCAA March Madness. Matt, your thoughts on Duquesne men's basketball. And I know that this is a Southwest Ohio show, and I know that we cover a lot of UD Flyers on this. But anytime that we have the opportunity, no matter who it is, anytime we have the opportunity to talk to somebody that's going to be in the big dance, and anybody who's going to be coaching in March Madness or playing in March Madness, I mean, we'd be fools to turn it down. And we were presented with this wonderful opportunity. And talking to Stephen Wright was absolutely amazing. And I think that everything went great. And just like he said, he's pulling for the UD Flyers. UD should be playing for Duquesne because at the end of the day, they're all coming from the same conference. They're all coming from the A10. And we see it so many times, like with it in basketball, with it in high school, with it in college, that teams from your same conference are going to root for them, even though you're rivals. They're going to root for them down the stretch because you're representing a conference. Now, when it comes to professional sports, it's a little bit different because it's division instead of conferences, but it's a little bit different when you talk about professional sports. But when it comes to collegiate sports and high school sports, it's been a common trend that when a team goes far, they will all root for that team because they are representing their area and their conference. That gives them more recognition in return as well. So obviously, if it was, Matt, you and I were talking about this at the break, Dayton, more of their bigger rivals, VCU, Richmond. If it were them in the March Madness tournament, I don't think that we'd be saying, I don't think that Dayton would be rooting on the other A10 team in, but teams like Duquesne, teams like George Washington, George Mason, some of those teams that, are in the same conference of the A10, I think that I think that Dayton should be able to root for some of those teams, and I think that it should root for those teams to bring recognition to that Atlantic 10 conference because no matter how you chalk it up, no matter how, you heard Stephen Wright mention, when you have 6 teams in a postseason, 2 in the March Madness tournament and 4 in the NIT tournament, the Atlantic 10 does, that is bringing you a lot more recognition into your conference, and more recognition this year will snowball into more recognition next year, and then the year after, and that's how you grow your conference to becoming a multi-bid conference, not just this season, but every single year that the A10 is going to be around.
And yeah, talking on the sentiment of should UD fans be rooting for Duquesne in their game against BYU, and should Duquesne fans be rooting for UD in their first-round game against Nevada, to me, since the A10 is a lot smaller of a conference, as opposed to like the Big 12, the Big 10, the ACC, all of those conferences like the SEC, the Big 12, I'd say the Big East can be thrown into that conversation as well. Granted, they only have 3 teams in March Madness this year, but usually the Big East has about 5 to 6, maybe even 7 teams making it into March Madness every single season. For conferences like that, you're not really going to see people rooting on other teams from that conference. But that's just because all the teams are such big-name teams. There's such big fan bases. And when you have such big fan bases, rivalries can end up getting a lot more heated than than other conferences' rivalry games would be. So for like the Atlantic 10, a conference that obviously has a lot of power in their punches with, like you mentioned, the fact that they've got 2 teams in the dance and then 4 teams in the NIT. To me, the way I see it and the way I look at it, I'm pulling for Duquesne to have a good run in March Madness unless we see both of these teams meet up in the Final Four. If we see them meet up in the Final Four, I am not rooting for Duquesne at all because that means they're going to be playing UD in the Final Four. At least I would think that's how the matchup would play out. But to me, you mentioned the fact that UD, say they get a win against Nevada. Say we see Duquesne get a win against BYU. That's going to be 2 Atlantic 10 teams winning against some teams out of conferences that have some of the most bids in March Madness this season. The Mountain West, 6 teams in, and then you take a look at the Big 12, they had the most at 9. So to me, you take a look at Duquesne playing BYU, and then if Duquesne ends up beating BYU, we could see them potentially play Illinois. That would be another game that Duquesne, you talk about putting, it's not that the A10 isn't on the map right now, but they're definitely not in a lot of people's they're not in a lot of people's vision as opposed to the ACC, as opposed to the SEC, the Big 12, the Big 10, the Pac-12, even though that's kind of dissolving and going away. But you take a look at a lot of the bigger conferences in college basketball, and then you take a look at conferences like the Atlantic 10. To me, if you're a fan of a team in the Atlantic 10, you've got to at least be rooting for one of these teams. Because at the end of the day, like you said, if we see Duquesne do good in March Madness, if we see UD do good in March Madness, even if we see teams like Loyola or teams like St. Joe's do good in the NIT, all that's going to do is put more eyes on the Atlantic 10 and potentially give the Atlantic 10 a better chance of getting at-large bids as opposed to a conference that more times than not you're going to see the tournament champion be the only team to make it in, like we've seen over the past few years for the Atlantic 10, as opposed to like this season where we've got obviously UD as a 7 seed, Duquesne as an 11 seed. So to me, for the success of the Atlantic 10, you've got to be rooting for Duquesne and UD. It doesn't matter if you're a Richmond fan. It doesn't matter. Well, Richmond, like you said, when it comes down to how heated those games between UD and Richmond have been the past few years, especially VCU versus UD the past few years, there might be a sour taste in some VCU fans' mouths with the fact that especially they lost in the Atlantic 10 tournament championship game against Duquesne. So VCU fans, they might not be rooting in any Atlantic 10 team because you've got one of your bigger rivals in UD and the team that kept you from making it into the dance in Duquesne. So, but if you're like George Washington fan, if you're a George Mason fan, if you're a Rhode Island fan, you've got to be looking at Duquesne and you got to be looking at UD and hoping those teams have some success because, say, Rhode Island, a few years down the line, has a team that is, I wouldn't say punching way above their weight because we just talked about how good the Atlantic 10 is truly. Say they're a team that's a bubble team that doesn't end up winning the tournament, doesn't end up winning the A10 tournament at the end of the regular season. Teams doing good right now is only going to, especially if those teams continue to do good, like if UD continues to have successful seasons years down the line, if Duquesne continues to have successful seasons years down the line, St. Joe's, Loyola, all of those teams that made the NIT, if they continue to have good seasons down the line, if Rhode Island's a bubble team and they played good against those teams that have had a good past few seasons and are good in that year, all that's going to do is help Rhode Island potentially make it as an at-large team. Or say the same thing happens for St. Joe's and they're in the NIT this year, but they end up playing a little bit better in the next few years. It's only going to help these teams, and it's only going to help the teams that are in the NIT or are looking to try to improve as the years go by, because at the end of the day, we talk about all of the good teams in the Big 12, all of the good teams in the Big East, all of the good teams in the Big 10, the ACC. The list can go on for Mountain West. How many teams did they have? 6 in this March Madness. If you're a team or if you're a conference like the Atlantic 10, having success in March is going to put a lot more eyes to the strength of this conference, which is only going to help with potential at-large bids down the line.
Absolutely. Matt, you hit it right on the money. And again, when you look at the A10, it's not a Power 5 conference. And some of the smaller conferences, well, they deserve some love too. And getting more teams in that tournament is ultimately over time, especially if you could start to pile it up. That's how you're going to grow the A10. That's how you're going to grow recruits. That's how you're going to grow opportunities for the Atlantic 10. Matt, first 4 continues tonight here at UD Arena. Grambling will take on Montana State for the 16 seed. Colorado versus Boise State. That it will be a battle for the 10 seed. Winner of that one will move on, and I believe they're going to be playing Florida, if I'm not mistaken. Am I correct, Matt?
Colorado, Boise State does have Florida. The winner of the other game, Grambling State, Montana State, they've got Purdue.
So when you look at Colorado and Boise State, this game coming up at UD Arena tonight for the first 4, if we were to see any of the teams win in the round of 64 and could possibly go on a run emerging from the first 4. Wagner with a great win yesterday. Colorado State looked dominant yesterday. But I'm looking at Colorado and Boise State because when you look at this game, whoever wins this game, I truly do believe will have a good chance of taking down the Florida Gators, who is especially now without their guard, Micah I may mispronounce his name.
Let's hear it.
Hanlogton, I'm pretty sure. Micah Hanlogton. I may have pronounced that wrong, and if I did, I'm sorry.
I'm not going to try it, so I
But now
don't
when
do
you
it.
look at the Florida Gators, who are without one of their star guards and without one of their star players who who ultimately had a leg injury. He fractured his lower leg on Saturday against Auburn. So now he's done. He's not going to be playing in this March Madness tournament. And Florida, this is their first game now without Micah Hanlogton. So now without Hanlogton on that team for Florida, first game that he misses is game one of March Madness. We've seen this happen over and over, and history does not favor the Florida Gators heading into this game. So whoever wins this game between Boise State and Colorado, to me, I think could take down the Florida Gators, and will also be playing this upcoming Sunday in the round of 32 as well.
Yeah, I do think the winner of Colorado and Boise State does have a good chance against Florida, but to me, and I went along and I picked Colorado State in their game against Virginia yesterday, and they are the team that right now, to me, out of all of the 8 teams we're going to see in the first 4, to me, especially with the way that they proved that they obviously deserve to be in the round of 64, I think I do think Colorado Boise State, winner of that game, does have a really good shot against Florida, but I truly do believe Colorado State, I think of all the 8 teams that are down there, obviously Virginia, they're not in the conversation anymore. Howard, they're not in the conversation anymore, but to me, I think Colorado State, out of those 8 teams, is the team that, of those 8, I think would have the best chance of making a deep run. I'm not saying that Colorado and Boise State aren't and don't have that possibility and don't have the ability to do so. But to me, I mean, you just take a look at Colorado State's season. Points during the year where they were top 15. Points during the season where they dropped out of the top 25. And then they would shoot themselves back up into the top 25. They're coming out of a tough Mountain West conference. I think of those 8 teams, you said winner Colorado Boise State. I do think that they do have a good shot of beating Florida. But then they've got Marquette. To me, Colorado State, if they take down Texas, they've got either St. Peter's or Tennessee in their next game. And to me, I think the Vols have had quite a few struggles so far this season. St. Peter's, to be honest, you can't really count them out because of what they've done in recent March Madness. But to me, I think Colorado State, of the 8 teams in the first 4, especially with a 25-point win against Virginia, to me, they've got the markings and they've got the makings of being a team that can make a good run in March Madness coming out of the first 4.
Time for a break. When we return, on the other side of this timeout, and on the other side of this timeout, David Marshall, advanced NBA scout and broadcaster for the TKDS Sports Network, will be joining us. He'll give us his thoughts on this year's NCAA March Madness. That and more coming up next here on Sports Now.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Whenever you're feeling good and hungry, it's Skyline time. Gather together with friends and family. It's Skyline time.
Being Friday, everyone's looking forward to the weekend. Skyline's a good way to kind of kick that off.
You smell the chili, you hear the crowd, and they're having a good time. Skyline Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays definitely happen as well.
We love it every time we go.
We love serving families our real family recipes, made fresh with quality ingredients. And we love helping families find ways to stretch a buck. You see, we've always been about value, with coupons and money-saving offers, like the free pizzas you get with our buddy cards, making it easier for families to share a meal and a laugh. With flavors so good, the only thing left are the crumbs. And the memories. La Rosa's, the real family pizzeria.
I'm thrilled to be at Wittenberg at this time and place, as the university is perfectly positioned to welcome an esports program like none other. Wittenberg's impressive athletics tradition and Tiger-Up spirit, mixed with a strong commitment to student success, will allow for a program that competes at the highest level while also caring deeply for each player, both personally and professionally. Esports at Wittenberg will not only be about gaming, but will also be about changing the game. Together, we will build a supportive, dynamic community as we bring our own distinct light to the global phenomenon of esports right here in Springfield, Ohio. It's time to Tiger Up. Let's go.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Whenever you're feeling good and hungry, it's Skyline time. Gather together with friends and family. It's Skyline time.
Being Friday, everyone's looking forward to the weekend. Skyline's a good way to kind of kick that off.
You smell the chili, you hear the crowd, and they're having a good time. Skyline Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays definitely happen as well.
We love it every time we go.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
We welcome you back here to the TKDS Sports Network and Sports Now. Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington, our producer Kevin Fowler, with us as always. And we are joined with advanced NBA scouts and broadcaster for the TKDS Sports Network. That is David Marshall. David, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here on this wonderful Wednesday. It's nice outside. It's a little bit cold, but David, once again, thank you for your time. Can you hear us?
I hear you great, Jackson. How's it going, Matt?
Doing pretty good. Jackson pretty much had all the questions down for the last interview, so hopefully I get to talk a little bit more during this one.
You just need to find a way.
I've always wondered, are you there? You know,
Matt, he gets paid to sit
smile
and
wave.
smile.
There's nothing wrong with that. You can be epic man all you want. Nothing wrong with that.
David, once again, as I mentioned a little bit ago in today's show and yesterday's show, we've had a lot of great interviews over the last couple of days. Brian Thornton, the Western Athletic Conference Commissioner, was on the show yesterday. We just talked to Stephen Wright a little bit over 20 minutes ago on this show, an assistant coach for Duquesne and the Duke's men's basketball program. And we've got those interviews because of this man right here, David Marshall. He has worked extra hard to help us out, get us into contact with some of these great fellas to join the show and to bring great interviews and hopefully, great content out to all of the wonderful viewers and listeners out there. So David, once again, a huge thank you to you. Truly, without you, none of this would be possible.
Well, it was easy because of the two of my favorite people in my life. So asking them, I felt comfortable enough that they're just truly good individuals, good men, good husbands, good fathers. So I felt, why not have these people speak? They had a tremendous career in college, and they played in tournament. And now they're seeing it from two aspects, as a player and now as a coach. So I thought it'd be a home run, and it sounds like it was. I haven't got to hear Steven's interview, but I'll be shocked if it wasn't a good one.
Well, David, you go ahead, check it out. Make sure to give us some feedback as well. David, again, thank you for taking time out of your busy day. Obviously, it's March, and March is when basketball is at an all-time high. And not only are there March Madness games that are first 4 games that tipped off last night, and then some more are coming up tonight. The first round officially beginning tomorrow within the NCAA March Madness tournament. It's also happening on the women's side of things as well. But David, the OHSAA State Boys Championships will be held this weekend at UD Arena as well. And David, we know that you have a couple of calls with that coming up this weekend, so we know you're trying to prepare for that. Go ahead and tell everybody what games you'll be calling and ultimately where you can listen and watch.
Well, it'll be on our first games will be radio broadcast, and I want to say iHeartRadio, is that right? You can correct me. I know it changed on me. And I got the Division IV state semifinals Friday at 10:45 in the morning. and then it'll be 2 games, so it'll be back-to-back. And then Sunday, again, I have the championship game for Division 4 state championship. I apologize for the teams' names, but I will do a better job of knowing who they are in front of me because I don't have my notes. But at the same time, it's an honor and a privilege to do it with Spectrum One people. And Tim Street's done a great job of including me along with those broadcasts. Typically, most of the games are really good. The semifinal games, you're going to get a good game. I have done this for 4 years in a row now, and I usually get one game where it comes down to a buzzer beater, or somebody has a shot to win or tie to go overtime, which is exhilarating. March Madness is something special because first of all, it's excitement. And first of all, spring happens, and so people are excited about it. The weather tends to be a little bit better, but being in the Midwest, it's hit or miss. We can both agree, or we all three agree with that. But the energy is different. Spring is, the perfect term for our weather is, or our season is spring. Excitement, spring into action. All those things happen along with March Madness. And I've been a part of it as a player and a coach through high school, junior college, and college, and you just feel the energy. You feel the focus. You feel like people like being around each other. We're all focused on one common goal. And I've been on the side of the women's side also, in high school and college, and you feel the energy of just we're all in it together now. The long season, this is the payoff. One and done. We survive and move on, and there's nothing like it, especially when you win. Obviously, when you get beat, it's the worst feeling in the world because you got you feel bad as a coach. You feel bad for the seniors. Number one, I don't care if they're a transfer. You still because it's over. It is, and we can say, well, they can always grad transfer, use a COVID year. Regardless, it's over. For the most part, it's a gut wrenching feeling. It's a feeling of emptiness. But there's nothing like it. I think I heard somebody say. I think Mike DeCourcy said it. Who used to write for Cincinnati Enquirer. I believe now he is in Indianapolis. Tremendous writer and does great work. Has said it best. It's probably one of the top 3 of yearly events in the world. He feels and he's done work where people around the world follow it. It's just the excitement of it and the unknowing of March Madness. So in one big breath, yeah, I'm excited. I got a lot going on with that too. So.
And David, again, talking about March Madness, there's so much that goes into it. And we know that you kind of have a little bit of an idea of what goes into the preparation when it comes to March Madness. I mean, 68 teams in a tournament, of course it's going to cause chaos, not just chaos on the floor and in the games we're watching, but also the preparation that goes into it as well.
Well, it's interesting. So when I reached out to Steve and said, hey, would you mind coming, gracing us with your presence with the TKDS Sports Radio and you guys' interview? He was trying to find time. And I said, well, what time, when are you available? He basically sent me the itinerary, and it is, and you got to remember now, he's got to be on the road. I'll just give you a synopsis of what he sent me of his itinerary. So, for example, Tuesday, March 19th, which was yesterday, 10 o'clock, load bus, 10:30, depart for airport, 12 o'clock, flight to Omaha, flight lands 1:15 in Omaha, and it's on 1:40, arrive at a hotel, 1:45 meals, 6 o'clock practice, 7:15 meals, and then today it's your time is the only time he was available, obviously, was between 12 and 6. And in between that, he's doing films anyway. I'm sure he told you that. So it's a grinder. But it's the energy, it's the juice that keeps you going. It's that opportunity to play in March Madness. And it's nonstop. And to catch your breath is probably maybe 1 or 2 days, either after you survive to move on to the next round, you just catch your breath. It's a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the NCAA March Madness tournament, when it comes to any professional sport or collegiate sport, I mean, when you think of a tournament, to me, March Madness comes to mind because there's no other sport at the college level. There's no other sport at the professional level that puts on as big as a tournament as March Madness does, and as the NCAA does for March Madness. There's a lot of other tournaments out there that try to compete with March Madness in different realms and for different sports, but at the end of the day, it's just not the same. March Madness is the focal point of any tournament. When you think a tournament, what should come to mind is March Madness for the NCAA.
Oh, of course. I mean, think about it. Even the NBA is trying to do something to simulate that, because they just see how the level of intensity, the level of play is flat out unequivocally unmatched. You can't match it anywhere. So, sorry about that. That's my dog. If you heard that, but yeah, you can't. It's a World Cup every year, and it's only in 2 weeks. Like maybe 2.5 weeks. Does that sound right? And typically the first 2 weekends are the most exciting because you have the most teams playing. And then the Final Four, obviously there's only 3 games. There's only 3 games played, but still leading up to that, absolutely incredible. And that's on the men and women's side. It's basketball, and then you have state tournaments. So for me, Kentucky, Indiana, now Ohio, just the excitement of those. I follow all 3 of those tournaments, for obvious reason. When I used to be a college coach, those were the ones when I was at Northern Kentucky, Morehead State. Those were the tournaments I followed a lot for recruiting purposes. And even when I recruited at UConn, I knew those tournaments like the back of my hand. So, yeah, it's always fun to be part of that and in some shape, form, or fashion.
Absolutely. David, it is time to take a quick break. When we return, we'll get your thoughts on some sleeper teams and teams to watch out for in this season's March Madness. So, David, once again, stay with us. We'll be back here in just a moment.
So, Jackson.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Whenever you're feeling good and hungry, it's Skyline time. Gather together with friends and family. It's Skyline time.
Being Friday, everyone's looking forward to the weekend. Skyline's a good way to kind of kick that off.
You smell the chili, you hear the crowd, and they're having a good time. Skyline Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays definitely happen as well.
We love it every time we go.
We love serving families our real family recipes, made fresh with quality ingredients. And we love helping families find ways to stretch a buck. You see, we've always been about value, with coupons and money-saving offers, like the free pizzas you get with our buddy cards, making it easier for families to share a meal and a laugh. With flavors so good, the only thing left are the crumbs. And the memories. La Rosa's, the real family pizzeria.
I'm thrilled to be at Wittenberg at this time and place, as the university is perfectly positioned to welcome an esports program like none other. Wittenberg's impressive athletics tradition and Tiger Up spirit, mixed with a strong commitment to student success, will allow for a program that competes at the highest level while also caring deeply for each player, both personally and professionally. Esports at Wittenberg will not only be about gaming, but will also be about changing the game. Together, we will build a supportive, dynamic community as we bring our own distinct light to the global phenomenon of esports right here in Springfield, Ohio. It's time to Tiger Up. Let's go.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Whenever you're feeling good and hungry, it's Skyline time. Gather together with friends and family. It's Skyline time.
Being Friday, everyone's looking forward to the weekend. Skyline's a good way to kind of kick that off.
You smell the chili, you hear the crowd, and they're having a good time. Skyline Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays definitely happen as well.
We love it every time we go.
Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington here on TKDS Sports Network and Sports Now. Thank you for joining us. Just about 26 minutes left here in this 2-hour show. We're talking to advanced NBA scout and TKDS Sports broadcaster David Marshall. We just got done talking about the preparation that goes in to a huge weekend like this in the basketball world. Of course, in the state of Ohio, the high school state championships will be coming up this weekend for boys basketball. And then, of course, March Madness in the first round. A lot of preparation that goes into it. And David, every single season, again, it's March Madness. It's exciting. There's so much excitement because there's so many unknowns that come within the March Madness tournament. When you look at March Madness basketball, there's no other tournament that produces the amount of upsets rather than March Madness does. So it seems like every single year there's a low seed that's finding themselves playing in the Elite Eight, possibly playing in the Final Four. David, who are some of your sleeper teams and who are some of your underdogs to watch out for this season in March Madness?
To be honest, I think Dayton is going to be a force to deal with. I don't know if they're a sleeper team, but I can see Iowa State making a tremendous run. I had Auburn picked to make a nice run, but they're in an extremely hard bracket with Connecticut, which, as far as that goes. But I wouldn't be surprised somebody out of the Mountain West makes some noise. They got 6 teams in there. Those 6 teams are pretty daggone good. Just which one, I'm not for sure. I can see Mexico being a shock to some people. But definitely Dayton. I think Anthony Grant does a tremendous job, and he's a well-seasoned coach, and that's a really good program and a really good team. Make no ends about that. I'm okay. That's about it. I'm trying to think off the top of my head who else I would. But looking at my brackets, those are the teams I felt comfortable in my brackets. Moving on and making some serious noise. I'll tell you what. Look out for Oakland versus Kentucky. Also. Because Kentucky doesn't defend well. And, tell people like, hey, Texas A&M is a methodical team. They've dropped 90-plus points on them every time they played. That tells you they struggle defending. And Oakland shoots the ball extremely well. And, they're the underdog. And people embrace the underdog. So I'm rooting for Purdue because I think Matt Painter's a good man. And he's somewhat doing it different, so I'm rooting for them. I think they got a good matchup, and plus, Zach Edey came back from last year's disaster, so he's motivated, and he's, so I can see that, and that's not a sleeper team, but at the same time, they can make some noise on the men's side. My sleeper team on the women's side, and nobody's talking about really, Ohio State could do some damage out there. Watch out for Iowa State. And then, Louisville. I can see Louisville sneaking in just because I think Jeff Wall does a tremendous job of coaching. So I want to make sure I cover everything.
David, you talk about some of the sleeper teams on the men's side of the bracket, and you talk about one from the Mountain West, and you mentioned New Mexico. And frankly, I have to agree with you. In my bracket, I have New Mexico going all the way to the Final Four. And the reason why I say that, I have New Mexico going all the way to the Final Four, and I also have James Madison going all the way to the Elite Eight, because James Madison, an upperclassman team, a lot of graduate students, a lot of redshirt seniors, a lot of juniors on that team, a lot of upperclassmen. And when you have an upper class heavy team, that recipe of success with them just playing with each other for quite some time, they're going to have the better team chemistry going up against, their bracket that they're in. It's going to be a very tough bracket because they're in the same bracket. If they were to get to they have Wisconsin, and then it's a possibility they have Duke, then it's a possibility that they have Houston. But with them having that upperclassman team, I am expecting James Madison to go on a run. And then I like going back to New Mexico. You talk about how great the Mountain West is. Mountain West, New Mexico, they play Clemson in round 1. They're in the same bracket with North Carolina in it. And North Carolina, very tough team, but I do think that they have looked beatable at some points this season. And again, when you look at the Elite Eight, when you look at the Final Four, it's never the top seeds. It's never just all 1 and 2 seeds. There's always at least one wrench in the plan, and there's always at least one double-digit seed that finds themselves in the Elite Eight or the Final Four. For me, I think it's New Mexico, and I think you can't count out James Madison as well.
Here's the key. And Bill Self, when he used to coach at Oral Roberts in Tulsa, you can go back and look it up, he always said the reason why he was successful at that level, and it translated when he was at Kansas, is you got to have people that can be a 4 that plays 5. So if you're a power forward, in some games you got to make him a 5 in order to guard, the mid-majors. Because their center's probably more of a 4, but he's got to play 5. So what does that mean? He can step out on the perimeter. He can bring the ball up. He can dribble hand, or he can shoot the 3. So your guys have got to be able to guard those guys. If you don't, you got to be able to know how to play small. And I believe those are the teams that do well. Now, mind you, the only one team that doesn't have to do that is UConn, because over the years they've won 6 national championships or 5. I could be wrong, but what they've learned to do is actually won 5. And it's came from Jill Calhoun. They've always been the top 3 or 4 in the nation in block shots. So what does that mean? That means they alter shots to the basket. So what else does that mean? That we can pressure the perimeter. And so they got bigs that can clean the basket up, and B, they'll go on the offensive end and score, whether it's a dump down or offensive rebound put back. And they're athletic and they're long. And so that's the one team that's figured it out consistently over the past 20 years. Or is it, 24 years. Think about it, they won 5 titles in 24 years. They're considered a dynasty in many respects when you look at it.
And yeah, you guys picked, obviously, David, you picked New Mexico. Jackson, you picked James Madison as being teams. I'm looking at another Mountain West team. They just won last night. I think Colorado State's got a pretty good shot. I mean, you take a look at their bracket.
Good. They diced up an extremely disciplined Virginia team, and Virginia had no answer to some of the action they were running. Good call on that one, Matt.
But yeah, they've got Texas first round. I think the Rams, if they continue the momentum after that Virginia game, I think that they can take care of the Longhorns. Then they're going to have either Tennessee or St. Peter's. To be honest, like I said, if the Rams keep up that momentum, I think they can easily take down either of those 2 teams. Then they've got Creighton, South Carolina, Akron, Oregon in the other half. They've already beat Creighton. They beat them pretty convincingly. Granted, it was earlier in the season, but they beat them pretty bad earlier on in the year. South Carolina, they've had struggles. Oregon obviously is playing pretty good basketball right now, so they're another team that I think could end up making some noise. I don't think it's going to be Elite 8 levels, but I definitely think Oregon could make noise in that South Carolina game. And then on the top half, that's where I think Colorado State's probably going to get knocked out, because the top half of the Midwest, you've got Kansas, Gonzaga, Purdue. All 3 of those teams in the top half of the Midwest. So for me, I think Colorado State could make it to the Elite 8, but I think that's where their run could end. But yeah, especially after that win against Virginia last night, I've been high on Colorado State since, I would say, first few weeks of the season after that win against Creighton. And for them being a 10 seed, playing as good as they did against a very tough Virginia team, I think Colorado State could be one of those teams that we talk about, double-digit seeding teams that could make a run in March Madness and could be that one team that plays spoiler throughout the entire tournament. I truly think Colorado State, with that 25-point win last night, I think the Rams are a team that could make some noise as well.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that's a great analysis, man. I agree with you. I have no qualms with them. That's a great. After watching what they did in Virginia, I'm like, yeah, whoever has them next, they got rhythm going in, they got confidence going in because they've played, they've gotten all the bugaboos out, And people got to guard their action. If you're not to guard their action, you're in trouble.
David, real quick, I know we only have you for a couple more minutes. Real quick, before we let you go, Matt, you can answer this as well. Who are your guys' final 4 teams? What 4 teams will find themselves? Now, this is our last show. When we have our show tomorrow, games will have already been played. So we're trying to go into as many predictions as we can here in a short amount of time. But who are your final 4 teams, David? Who are your final 4 teams, Matt? And guys, who do you have winning it all?
I'm pulling up my bracket right now. Hold on. I gotta get.
I gotta actually my bracket's upstairs.
I can go ahead and start if you want me to.
You go first, yeah.
All right. I got UConn. UConn, I think that they will be going up against New Mexico in the Final Four. I think New Mexico is a sleeper team. In the other side of the bracket, I have Kansas coming out of the Midwest. And in the South, I have Creighton coming out of that. I have Creighton that's going to be coming out of that. Or I beg your pardon. Sorry, wrong bracket. I have Marquette that's going to be coming out of the South. So we're going to have Kansas versus Marquette. I'm going to have Kansas winning that one. I have UConn versus New Mexico. Give me UConn. UConn goes back to back.
I mean, Jack, Kansas is depleted, right? Like their best players out.
Yes, I do know that. But when you look at their run, I just have a hunch feeling that when you look at that Midwest bracket, we look at all the games that's coming in to round number 1. The reason why I'm going with Kansas in that still, even though that they are depleted, when you look at that round 1 matchup, look at how many upsets that can happen in that bracket. And I think when you talk about the Midwest bracket in general, I think that bracket is going to be the craziest bracket possible. You have St. Peter's. I have them going up against Tennessee. I have them taking down Tennessee. Colorado State, I could see them knocking off Texas. You have Oregon. I could see them knocking off South Carolina. McNeese Gonzaga, I think that's going to be an incredible game. TCU, Utah State, and Purdue, every single time they've gotten to the March Madness tournament, there's just something that turns they just cannot compete in that March Madness tournament. Now, I know that this is not teams from the past, but when you look at that bracket, that Midwest bracket, I am foreshadowing more upsets coming out of that Midwest bracket than any other bracket. I think that's going to be the craziest bracket, and I do think Kansas, that is still a very tough team to play, even though that they are depleted. Very tough team to play coming out of the Big 12. I do like the Jayhawks. I think that they're going to find some rhythm.
I mean, if you say so, man. I went to KU at a high school. I mean, I'm a big Bill Self fan. I think the only thing that brings them together is supposedly their leading scorer could play, but he's worried about his draft stock, and so Self's not too late. He's doing everything he can to say the right things and take the high road, which I respect that. But I think if the only way is Coach Self is going to legitimately coach, he's going to play real small. And if guys buy in, which I think they will, most guys do around this time, then you could be right. I just don't see it. I just don't know, but that's just my opinion. But go ahead, Matt. Matt, your turn.
All right, so my Final Four, and this is I just talked about Colorado State. To be fair, I made this before Colorado State ended up beating Virginia. My Final Four, I've got Iowa State beating UConn in the Elite Eight. I've got North Carolina. I've got Duke and Creighton. Those are my Final Four.
Okay. All right. People like Creighton. I just the only thing I haven't been wowed about them this year. I've seen games last year, like, man, they're pretty good. But this year, I don't. And I could be wrong. Greg McDermott does a tremendous job. It's never transferred to tournament success. Huge success per se. Let me reiterate that. But I don't have any qualms with it as far as that goes. So, okay, all right. Well, for me personally, and I feel like I'm going chalk, but I'm really going with Purdue coming out of the Midwest, and I'm gonna say it because I just feel it's there. I think Houston's going to end up coming out of the South, so 2 number ones, and then out of the West, I feel like Dayton. I got a hunch Dayton's going to do it. I think Arizona's going to get popped by Long Beach, and that Dayton-Nevada game is going to be a good game. That's going to be a really good. Nevada's good. Steve Alford does a good job out there. So watch for that. There's a lot of great matchups. Coaching styles are the key. of these matchups. Like Iowa State plays South Dakota State. Well, guess who used to coach at South Dakota State? The Iowa State head coach. So there's a feeling of knowns. You know, there's unknowns and knowns. So there's going to be a feeling of we know each other in a sense. But I feel like Dayton comes out of the West, even as a 7th seed. That's not a stretch. And then UConn. So I got UConn, Dayton, Purdue, Houston. And I'm sure about that's not happening, but we'll see. Stranger things have happened.
Hey, it is the beginning of March Madness, and unless you have picked Virginia and Wagner to win it all, well, your brackets are not busted. So, David, once again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here on Sports Now. We know you have a lot of things to get to, so we are going to take a break. When we return, some tragic news circling around the Cincinnati Reds earlier today. That and more coming up next on Sports Now.
Whenever you're feeling good and hungry, it's Skyline time. Gather together with friends and family. It's Skyline time.
Being Friday, everyone's looking forward to the weekend. Skyline's a good way to kind of kick that off.
You smell the chili, you hear the crowd, and they're having a good time. Skyline Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays definitely happen as well.
We love it every time we go.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
We love serving families our real family recipes, made fresh with quality ingredients. And we love helping families find ways to stretch a buck. You see, we've always been about value, with coupons and money-saving offers, like the free pizzas you get with our buddy cards, making it easier for families to share a meal and a laugh. With flavors so good, the only thing left are the crumbs and the memories. La Rosa's, the real family pizzeria.
I'm thrilled to be at Wittenberg at this time and place, as the university is perfectly positioned to welcome an esports program like none other. Wittenberg's impressive athletics tradition and Tiger-Up spirit, mixed with a strong commitment to student success, will allow for a program that competes at the highest level while also caring deeply for each player, both personally and professionally. Esports at Wittenberg will not only be about gaming, but will also be about changing the game. Together, we will build a supportive, dynamic community as we bring our own distinct light to the global phenomenon of esports right here in Springfield, Ohio. It's time to Tiger Up. Let's go.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
We welcome you back here to the TKDS Sports Network. Jackson Lightcap Matthew Pennington. Final about 8 minutes of the show, but we had some breaking news that was reported just a couple of hours ago. It was actually reported before the show started, but we already had the show outline set in place, so we are announcing it at the end of the show. But some news that is circling around the Cincinnati Reds. Matt, yesterday on this show, we talked about the injury bug striking the Cincinnati Reds. TJ Friedel, he is expected to start on the IL. Brandon Williamson, it was announced yesterday, he's expected to start on the IL. Nick Lodolo, it was announced a couple weeks ago, he's expected to start the season on the IL. And Matt McClain, we were talking about him yesterday on the show because he was scratched from the lineup with shoulder soreness, and at the time it was deemed precautionary. But now Matt McClain had an MRI And apparently the Cincinnati Reds saw something. David Bell said it's too early to determine what it could mean for opening day. And ultimately now there's a lot of question marks on whether or not Matt McClain will be on the opening day roster or whether or not he will have to require some sort of surgery. And with that being said, he may start the season on the IL. Matt, we're 8 days before opening day. I mean, if these were to happen at the beginning of spring training, okay, whatever, I mean, not whatever, but it's more precautionary. And now when you have these injuries that are starting to pile up towards the end of spring training, you are 8 days away from playing your home opener. And Matt, just like we talked about yesterday on this show, the month of April for the Cincinnati Reds is an absolute gauntlet. It is an absolute gauntlet. And if the Reds want to get a jump start and get a good start, because the Reds have always started off the month of April slow, if they want to start off on a good foot, and if they want to set the tone high for their season early on, the Reds have got to find ways to win and beat these powerhouses that they meet during April. And if they're able to do that, it could open the door for the Reds later on in the season when we're talking about them in September, possibly winning the NL Central. But now they're going to have to do it without some key guys such as TJ Friedel, such as Brandon Williamson, such as Nick Lodolo, and now possibly Matt McClain. Again, the depth for Cincinnati plays a huge factor, but at the same time, you just have to wonder at the injury bug. The injury bug has to get evicted from Great American Ballpark or something, because it has resided there the last couple of years. The lease has got to be up. Kick it out, evicted. You don't want the injury bug residing in Great American Ballpark like it has plagued the Cincinnati Reds in that stadium for quite some time.
Yeah, it's definitely something that obviously needs to be looked at for the Cincinnati Reds when it comes to the injury bug for the team, but I'll kind of preach a similar, if not the same sentiment I had yesterday. Obviously, injuries at the end of the day are not something you want to see, especially when it's for your team that you support and the team that you like. But to me, at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, obviously I wouldn't want to see injuries in the first place, but I would much rather see them happening at around opening day time, and that be when the massive number of injuries start piling up and start accumulating, as opposed to the Reds being a team that they are projected to be this season, right around playoff picture, near the end of the regular season, and then we start seeing those injuries pile up, and it ends up being something that costs Cincinnati a chance at making it into the postseason. So to me, obviously, at the end of the day, I don't want to see the injuries happening in the first place because I'm a Reds fan. I don't want to see Cincinnati Reds players getting hurt and missing time because of it. But at the end of the day, if it's going to happen, I would much rather it happening during opening day time or during the early part of the season, as opposed to Cincinnati Reds playing the type of baseball they were expected to this season, being a team in the wild card hunt, or maybe even being a team towards the top, if not the top team in the NL Central. And then the injury bug starts finding its way into Great American Ballpark, and then it starts plaguing the Cincinnati Reds at around that time. I would much rather see it happening now than later. At the end of the day, I'd much rather not be seeing it in the first place, but we're living in the world where Matt McClain's probably going to need surgery. He's probably not going to be on the opening day roster. You've obviously got Friedel not going to be on the opening day roster. We're living in that world right now. So it's not are we going to see injuries happen for the Cincinnati Reds? They're happening. And like I said, I would much rather, and I would hope the injury bug is sticking around during spring training and around the early part of the season, and it doesn't end up finding a home in Cincinnati, and it doesn't try lounging up in the suites at Great American Ballpark and staying throughout the remainder of the season. I'd much rather see it happen now than later down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you bring up a great point. I think that, unfortunately, you never want to see an injury happen. But it is sports, and if you have to pick and choose, having it at the beginning of the year instead of at crucial times at the end of the year where you are ramping up for a hopeful playoff spot, it is ultimately the better time to have it. And again, it's all we still don't necessarily know what's going to happen to Matt McClain. He had an MRI. It's yet to be determined whether or not he is going to need surgery and whether or not he's going to miss the opening day active roster or he'll start the season on IL. That's all still to be determined. But again, we talk about the players that it's already been announced. Brandon Williamson. You also talk about, beg your pardon, lost my train of thought. Nick Lodolo, TJ Friedel, so many different players that are on the IL stint. And ultimately, that is something that the Reds are going to have to overcome. And as we mentioned on yesterday's show, Cincinnati, one thing that they have more than I'd say any other team in Major League Baseball is they have depth. And that is the most important thing, especially with the Reds and where they stand at the beginning of the season. That'll take us to the end of this 2-hour show. Alongside Matthew Pennington, our producer Kevin Fowler, I'm Jackson Lightcap. Thanks for dealing with us. We're live tomorrow from 4 to 6 p.m. right here on the TKDS Sports Network.